All right, everybody, welcome to the Talent Insights podcast brought to you by Hirewell Careerwell. I'm your host, James Hornick. Joining me for the second time in our ongoing series, which I just decided to call the Employer Content Show, brand marketing guru from Job Portraits, Nate Guggia.
Oh boy, you threw the guru in.
Well, your title, brand marketing, it's like not like a person's title. It's what you do, but like it's not like you're brand marketing lead or director or so
It's
I had to
sneaky.
ad lib on that. Yeah,
It's sneaky.
it's little. Anyways, so last time we did this, that was in April, which seems like almost. It's 3 months ago. We thought we'd be back in the offices by June, July.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
Not so much.
Going the other way.
So much. I know. Yeah, man, this is great. I'm glad to be talking again. I think like there's definitely things that you and I chat about on the side that are worth mentioning publicly. So yeah, let's roll with it.
Yeah. All right. So what's new in your world? I guess from an employer brand perspective, like I'm assuming the initiatives and things you're having people do now is a lot different than 3 months ago. This is kind of dried on. So I'm just kind of curious like what the priorities are, like what, smart organizations who are trying to stay on top of things from an EB perspective, like what they're doing.
Yeah. So we're doing a lot more communication style writing, a lot more like internal comms. We're getting requests So that was after COVID hit and everything changed. Then a lot of things shifted to internal comms. But I think like now, and you're seeing this too probably, is that companies now are like starting to open up hiring more. Whether it's like little by little or it's some are hiring at full scale.
We're definitely seeing companies opening up higher. We're also seeing other companies laying off. So it's not really that's kind of the
and I have to
I feel like it's like one step forward, two steps back, because like, we're seeing more companies hiring, but it's every single day. Like I'm hearing about some other company that's like either laying off or telling me we're probably gonna be laying off. And so.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be really sensitive to that and realize that in some ways I do live in a bubble in just the work that we do and the clients that we work with.
Yeah.
Tech, bigger tech, especially in like insulated industries, are doing extremely well. And are just like, they're hiring a lot. And
most of the hiring we are seeing is tech and sales at tech companies.
And sales.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, but here's like, okay, so with those companies in the conversations that I'm having, quality is now a big issue because now it's not a volume. Now it's a volume thing with lack of quality. And so now they're thinking about, like how do we maintain a really great experience for our candidates and deal with these number of applications that are coming in. And so that's something that we can talk about for sure when it comes to like content and filters and things like that. But then on the flip side of that, in conversations that I'm having where teams are still intact, these like talent teams or EB teams are still intact, but maybe they've really scaled down hiring or they've paused it. They're starting to think about this stuff and using this time to really create the things that they've neglected when they were like hair on fire and like couldn't keep up with hiring goals, And so it's really great. I think like overall employer branding, I wasn't really sure what direction it was going to go when this all happened, but it's becoming much more of a thing that people are paying attention to.
What sorts of things, like you're saying, like things they weren't paying attention to?
Yeah, I think so I'm thinking specifically more about like growth stage startups, content creation, getting their employees out there, creating their own content, structuring, like just creating, like it really comes down to like content and messaging. Like those are two things that like go by the wayside when you just don't have the time to do it. And especially when EB is falling on someone's plate who also is balancing a whole number of other things, And so they're just starting to think about like, how do we start interviewing employees and getting their feedback and getting a pulse on the finger on the pulse of the culture and like maybe redefining our values and creating content that displays this and rewriting job description, like all that kind of stuff that you just don't have the time to do when things are extremely busy. I'm noticing that a lot of talent leaders are taking a more thoughtful approach because they finally have the time to do it. And I'm really happy to hear that they're doing that instead of just,
So it's interesting because we were planning for this. Like we posted a clip last week just from our conference call that you and I do occasionally, where we
Yeah.
were talking about like content that's employee driven. And actually, because I had more thoughts on that and um, more things I kind of wanted to add to that discussion. But even kind of before getting to that per se, like you're
Yeah.
mentioning job descriptions and things like that, which is kind of funny because as a recruiter, like I instinctively hate job descriptions because I know that usually when I read them, I just expect it to be BS. Like I
Yeah.
expect the job description that I read to just be someone else's rehash job description. You know what I mean? Like someone
Yeah.
copied some other job description who copied some other job description. Like that's like at least half of the job descriptions I see, if not more. I don't want to throw everybody under the bus, but at the same time, I recognize that having something that is more descriptive, and that's part of and you're mentioning, companies that they're flooded with volume. I think that candidates see the same thing.
Mhm.
They're going to, because they just assume that a lot of this isn't real or isn't necessary because it's probably just some rehash thing. So this looks like it's within the ballpark of what I would apply. Why not? It's so easy to click apply. And
Yeah.
so the problem just compounds itself, So like if his job descriptions aren't well written and it's just kind of assumed that they're not, then everyone just go apply because no one wants to rule themselves out based on the job description, which may or may not even be accurate. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious. I mean, it's an industry-wide problem. You know what I mean? So it's not just if you fix it at your company, like you're still contending with every other organization out there that doesn't do a good job of it because it's that impression that job seekers have. Or maybe I'm just,
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm big on this idea right now of like back to basics. And what I
mhm,
mean by that is, I think there are basic, very foundational pieces of content, job descriptions being one of them, that many companies miss on. They overlook them because one, they either don't recognize that what they do or their approach is unique and in many ways special,
mhm,
or they have shiny object syndrome and they want to create other kinds of content like video or employee profiles and all these other things, but they just don't have this foundation of evergreen content in place that like actually when the rubber hits the road and we're talking about candidate experience can really, really make a big difference and make you actually stand out like, whoa, this company is different. Here, I'll give you some like really tactical examples. So one, like rewriting job descriptions to be like, we're just in a new time. And I've been going through and doing some audits of companies and looking at their candidate experience. And one of the things I do is like, I go through their job descriptions with a fine tooth comb and call out all the stuff they're doing wrong. And at first I was shocked and now I'm not, but there's a lot of companies that I've seen who haven't updated their job description since COVID. So it still looks like they're hiring for this specific location.
yeah,
They're not talking about company policies. Even like you don't have to specifically address a pandemic, but like you should address company policies that would make me as a candidate feel safe and confident that if I joined your team and something like this were to happen, these are the types of things that you think about or measures that you have in place. I also think like more transparency on about the team that you would be working on, about like how that team thinks, the work that they do, problems you would be solving, who leadership is. I mean, these are all things that like candidates wanted. This is research candidates want to go do on their own, but companies aren't providing them with the information they need up front to go and do this research. So like if I knew that James was going to be my manager, like I'd want to go see what you're up to. But if I didn't know you were my manager, I'd be like, who am I going to be working for? Like this is big. This is a
yeah,
really
yeah.
key relationship. And so that's job descriptions. But then like outside of that, and if we start looking at foundational content, I think about it this way. Like, if I were a talent leader, what do I wish showed up on Google if a candidate were researching us as a company?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So if you take that and then you reverse engineer things, then you can start putting pieces in place and putting that stuff in front of candidates and going like, here it is. Like, it's amazing when you look like how many companies you can look at and you go to their website and you have no clue what they do.
yeah.
You're like, what do you do? And so we think about this in a way of like either creating like a nutshell doc in like in just like Google Doc that you can share with candidates, or doing it in a blog post that has a bunch of really important links for candidates. And things we've done at Job Portraits are We've done a blog post on our process for hiring new team members, which is basically a candidate FAQ. We have a blog post on our criteria for evaluating job candidates. So a candidate can know, like, this is our approach. This is our unique approach, the way that we think about it, the way that we interview. We have a cheat sheet for understanding our business. That's like really pulling back the curtain and going like, this is what we do. There's a lot of fancy terminology, but this is actually what we do. And then we also have an opinion piece on our industry where it's just our unique thoughts and opinions about this industry. And that, like, if you put all those together, what you're doing is you're allowing a candidate to like really see inside of your company, your team, the way you think about this industry. And if that resonates, then you're like all in. And if it doesn't, you're going to opt yourself out. And those are all candidate experience style posts or content that you can create in many different ways to share with candidates, like as they become interested. I think it's really important.
I agree. And I think that dovetailing into what I wanted to mention about like employee generated content, because you mentioned like shiny object syndrome, where, you know, someone wants to do like the cool stuff, all these new initiatives without like first taking care of like a lot of the stuff internally. We'd kind of talked about what we've been doing with, you know, I think that it's easier to create content if you get more people in your organization involved in creating content. It's a fun activity for them to do. You have to empower them to do it. It's terrifying for a lot of companies because maybe there's not the level of trust. Maybe they don't know what people are going to want to talk about. But I think it's when you have that mindset, if you take care of all this internal stuff first, so not just like internal messaging, but also like, you're making sure your values are in line and making sure you've actually created a good place to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Make sure you've actually, you know, done what you can to kind of foster a positive employee experience, you know, then it just becomes easier to take the reins off and let your employees just create content and be more vocal. And I mean, that's the one thing I think is, if it's like external, like the sexy stuff, the more external focused stuff, people posting on LinkedIn or doing podcast or doing video and all this kind of stuff, like the more people you have involved in that, the better. It gives, but in order to set yourself up for success there, it's easy to do when you feel like when things are running well. You know, it's easy to do when, you know, the external messaging matches, you know, what you want people to say matches what the actual real deal is there. And I think it all starts with what you're talking about in terms of creating the greenfield, not just the greenfield content, but also the real deal behind the scenes at an organization.
Yeah. That's a really good point. You want to talk about employee generated content?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to go first.
Yeah.
Because you and your organization are like one of the best examples of doing this. So let me go first, and then you can talk about like experientially. Okay. All right. So I was thinking about this yesterday. I think there's a difference between content and posting. And what I mean by that is, like, if I look like yesterday I posted that we were going to be doing this, right? That's a post. There wasn't more to it. It was just like an awareness thing. Content, I think, is when you can bring this unique perspective or opinion or take on your industry, not on your company, but just it's to inspire thought. Whether people agree or disagree, it's to get people thinking and to elevate the level of awareness around your industry. That's the difference between content and posting, to me. Now, let's say, all right, I want to start creating content. Then the people who understand this are like practitioners. Like, you're a practitioner of this. I'm a practitioner of this. We understand like the qualitative data or the feedback that comes from this. Like, I know that when I get on a call with somebody and they say, oh, I've been following your posts for 6 months. I know that it works. I know that it creates value, but like, I can't like attach data to that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so that's what I'm like, I'm like looking at this and I go, okay, there are practitioners at the top, like yourself, like Casey at Gravy, like, you know, some others who lead from the front, who understand the value of this because you yourselves received the feedback. And as a result, you give your employees, you empower your employees to do the same because you believe in it. And I think practitionership, if that's even a word, can lie where somebody like yourself is actually doing the work, or maybe if you're not doing the work, you just have a belief system and a mindset that supports it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as a result, you do the same kind of thing where you empower your employees to go and do that. But I think like anybody who would disagree with that and want to put employees in a box and say like, no, you can't have a public voice, just doesn't have the level of, they're not practitioners. Like they've never received that kind of feedback to validate that it's working.
Yeah, I could see I can see your point there. I went all in on it just as an experiment probably a year ago. I mean, not even all in. Like when people first started posting videos, I would do a video post and you'd see like how many views you get versus some blog that you did or some other thing. And you're like, why isn't everyone doing this? You know what I mean? Like you can tell, and it's branding and it's hard to attach like value to, but once you can tell that it's resonating with people, once you start getting that feedback loop, like you mentioned, like I'll have calls with people and just checking in with old contacts of mine or people I've placed in the past, and they'll mention it as something like it has some sort of effect, and my goal, I guess, getting this, like our goal for the past year or so is just like, I wanted my organization to just be the first thing that pops into someone's mind in the city of Chicago when they think of a recruiting firm. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I need a recruiter. I need to go to a recruiting firm. Who do I Hirewell? That's like the first thing that comes to mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to make it all work, like it's not I have zero interest in being like, there's so many LinkedIn influencer sales bros people, you know what I mean, that like have created a name for themselves across the world. I don't even know what most of them do or anything else like that. Like I never had any interest in like, I wanted the organization, you know what I mean, just to be more well known. But it comes down to like, I'm one person, you know what I mean? How can you scale things? And like, well, we have a team of 50 here, and luckily we have a lot of smart people. We have a lot of people who are interested to have different opinions, and are vocal about kind of what they're passionate about. So it's the kind of thing where like, I guess I was able to get other people internally to recognize that there is value in this. You know what I mean? Like I'm seeing your post more. I'm talking about like my colleagues seeing my posts, or they're hearing people they talk to mention that they've seen stuff we're doing. So okay, let's start a podcast out of it. Let's make it more video focused. Let's get more people involved. Let's encourage other people to post, And then there's the people like, I can't say enough good things, specifically Ryan Brown, Emily Gore, Jeff Smith, like they're great. They've, they're doing their own thing with all the stuff. And that's also kind of empowered other people in the organization to, maybe not everyone is comfortable in front of the camera, but it gets other people more motivated to at least discuss more, to like Jeff and I, we're always trolling each other in the comments of our posts, you know what I mean? But that makes the rest of the organization, like, this is what normal people do on the internet. They have fun. That's the whole point of it. You know what I mean? So like everyone else in the company realizes that, hey, when these guys post, we're allowed to just kind of make fun of them or like, stupid stuff like that, which just makes it honestly more human, because like, I don't really know, that's what people want to see like on social media. But getting to your other point though, too, is that the only thing we had to do structurally is making sure we're on the same page in terms of what's everyone seeing, what are kind of the talking points, like what are things that we're seeing in the industry that are relevant now. So when we were in the office, we, so it's been a few months, but we would have, regularly scheduled kind of content meetings where we just brainstorm like and it's the content isn't what content do we create? It's what are our clients talking about? What are candidates talking about? Like, what are people seeing out there they're struggling with? What's new, what's changing, and just kind of talk about those things. And then we just kind of bounce ideas. Okay, what's our take on these issues? You know what I mean? So that type of thing. A lot of it now is, so we have a lot of Zoom meetings, obviously. A lot of our content recently has been more Careerwell focused. So, the brand we're launching, that's more focused on actual helping job seekers. So it's not recruiting, it's actually kind of more instructive content in terms of how to network, how to brand yourself, how to create a resume and all that type of stuff. And there's a million topics there in that whole realm that can be talked about, that if you Google any of them, it's just basic blog posts you're going to see where everyone's just copying each other's stuff. So there's so much like runway for innovation there. But I guess my point is for you is in order to make things work, to your point, yes, you have to have, someone has to be kind of the test case, you know what I mean, to get buy-in for the rest of the organization. But you need to urge people to, and identify people who have the interest in this kind of stuff and encourage them to do it. You know what I mean? Like, so you're going to, any organization is probably going to have 3 or 4 people who just are passionate about what they do and are comfortable with social media. And you have to give them pretty much free rein to do what they want and encourage them to kind of get more involved. And then you also just have to occasionally have a sync up once. It doesn't even need to be every week, but, you know, every couple of weeks, just make sure everyone, not just the people who are highly involved in, you know, publishing the content, but anyway, we have a lot of people who like writing stuff. We have a lot of people who enjoy, like they want to get involved from a, here's how we want to position ourselves as thought leaders. You might see them comment on stuff here and there. You might see them post stuff occasionally. They don't love it as much as some of the rest of us do, but they're passionate about, like, here are the ideas I have, let's get them out there. So, and it's all very informal. Like none of it's forced, none of it's anyone's official job description, but I think it's important to give, you know, I think it's important in general to give people opportunities to do stuff that's outside of their norm, right? Stuff that's not their regular job. It's what keeps people engaged and challenged and allows them to do new things. But if you make one of those things, if you're sold on the idea that, okay, we want to give our employees a chance to do something different, you know what I mean, or give our employees a chance to do some other thing, why not make it employee generated content? Like it's total payoff. It's a total win.
Yeah. Okay. I want to add, there's a couple of things I want to add.
Sorry, I rambled.
No, it's great. Let's see. One is numbers. I've been thinking about this lately. So when you're first starting off, I mean, this happens to both of us now too. It's like not every post you put out is going to hit. Mm-hmm. Some days it might take off. Some days you might get nothing, whatever, you know? And it's just like this attachment to numbers can really hinder people from like moving forward with this and putting in the time and just enjoying the actual practice of it or the process of it. Like for me personally, like at first it's easy to get caught up in numbers. How could you not? Right? You have a post that like hits and you're just like, whoa, like people like me, you know, but like, no, they don't. It's just really.
Here's your imposter syndrome coming out.
Yeah, right. It is big time. Transitioning to therapy. But if you do it like for the love of the game, right? It's like, I love the writing in this style. I love writing 200 words or less in choppy format and just like putting my thoughts out there. Like it just really resonates with me. And so as a result, like I keep doing it. But then I started looking at like, what do numbers actually mean and what numbers really matter, right? And so like, if we are going to like focus on the engagement or the numbers, it's not that hard to get a post to go wild. Mm-hmm. You can just, I mean, especially now, there's so many like cultural topics that you can talk about that are extremely agreeable. And if you want to jump into that, you can, and you can get a whole bunch of likes. The tangible value that brings, I really question. And so in my opinion, I would rather have 10 from my people, from my target audience who I'm specifically speaking to, than 100 or 300 or 500 from just like random audience who just is agreeing with me because it's like, how could you not agree with this topic kind of thing, you know? Yeah. I think that level of perspective is really needed because then you can focus on like the quality of engagement and continuing to speak to that audience, and that quality of engagement will continue to grow instead of worrying about all this other stuff. It's all distraction.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It comes down to vanity metrics, which I think vanity metrics is one of the funniest topics because everybody will say, don't chase vanity metrics, especially the people who chase vanity metrics, you know, like I think it's so intoxicating. People chase vanity metrics without even realize they're doing it. They probably get excited when they make a post about not chasing vanity metrics and it gets like 1,000 likes, right? It's just like one of those, I think that the point of everything we do on LinkedIn is pretty much B2B, right? Like the whole reason why we post what we post is because we want to help people out so they eventually want to use us,
Mm.
right? Like that's the whole reason behind it, right? So if you're doing it right and you're doing it well, you're providing value, you're helping someone out with their business problems. So they in turn someday down the line, who knows when it's going to be, when they do need, for me, when they need to hire, when they need to look for a job, they come to me. If they need employment branding services, they come to you. But you don't get it by being salesy. The problem is if you're just, when you're like, to your point, if you're just posting, get it done, you know what I mean? We got this, we're in this together, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like the most recent thing is happening, or whatever the hot button issue is, and you just post an agreeable post. Like you're not really doing that, there's people out there who I see them post all the time. I have absolutely no idea what their perspective is outside of that, maybe that one issue they just post again and again and again.
Yeah.
I don't want to out anyone specifically, but I see people who post a lot of motivational attaboy posts, or maybe they just have one topic they're passionate about, and they keep going with like one thing again and again. But I don't know what their company does. I don't know, what their role is. I don't know what their perspective is beyond that. And I think that, I think it's important that, and maybe we're getting a little bit off topic here, that there's that slight difference between staying in your lane versus just posting the same thing again and again.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Here, can you expand on that?
If you have 3 stump points, right? You have 3 things that you want to drive home as like what you're known for. How many times can you post about that before whoever is listening to you is starting to tune you out?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's there's a level of, I've heard this before, there's people I know that I like and respect a lot, who you want to stay in their lane to the point where, it seems like it's the same 3 to 5 issues. And I thought they were great issues the first few times I heard them months and months ago, but now I don't even really pay attention to their stuff, because I can look at it and see, oh, it's the same thing, that I saw last time.
Yeah.
And I wonder if is there a reticence with people to, or people, they keep going back to the same well because the vanity metrics worked the first time. You know what I mean? Like these are the topics that got a bunch of clicks. So they just want to keep coming back to them because they know it'll work. Or is it a lack of familiarity with anything else, or a lack of a fear of putting themselves out there and getting exposed for maybe not being an expert in some other area? Or do they just not have anything else to say?
Okay. Oh shoot, man, we can go way down this hole right now.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Here, let's answer. There's a question in the chat.
Okay.
This is along the lines of what you're talking about here. How do you ensure your content stands out, especially given that almost every company is trying to do this, given the current remote recruiting environment?
You want to take it? You want me to take it?
Go ahead, and then I'll add.
I think this is probably a Dave Gerhardism. I'm probably stealing straight from him, so I like to cite my sources. You have to write like you talk. You have to write with the same vernacular and the same personal way that you would deliver. Like all of my posts, like anytime I talk about stuff, I'm the same like I'm sarcastic when I talk with people. I try not to be totally buttoned up. Like you have to let your the way that you kind of communicate, and that's not people. A lot of times when people say write the way you talk, like they construe that as like everyone else is being fake, which I'm not saying at all. But I think a lot of people are too concerned with, I need to be professional and down the lines because this is my company's name I'm putting out there. And if someone doesn't like it, that'll reflect badly on us. And I'm also not saying like just go off on a profanity-laced tirade. But I think that I'm really just talking about kind of the language you use. Like if you want to say something and you have a message, literally say it out loud, type it out as you're saying it. I think that's a huge way, because the way that versus every other stock message is out there, every other corporate speak message out there that's written by somebody who's trying to write like perfect copy, it definitely sticks out. I also think for me, you also have to have fun in the comment section, like I'd like to think that the way that I communicate with people and on posts that I like, it's unmistakable. Like a lot of times I'm not even talking about the topic. I'm just like making a joke about something unrelated, it's like, people realize you're a real person when you're treating social media like it's social media, you know what I mean? As opposed to some other thing, you know? I don't see any reason why you should be, I try to, in my mind at least, you know, the way that people would communicate on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and how they talk, like, why wouldn't you have a similar kind of vibe in your LinkedIn messaging? Because that's
Yeah.
what people want to see when they're on the internet for fun.
Okay. I think I'm going to steal another thing from Dave. Every now and then he talks about writing in short, choppy format, right? Whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever that means for you, I know what it means for me. And I think that, let's say, like with LinkedIn specifically, LinkedIn provides the opportunity to write it in somewhat longer form, but like you still have to be like succinct, right? So like you can get your thoughts out, but you're still limited by characters. And being able to write concisely, to convey a thought in a way that when you read it, it's almost like somebody is talking to you, is it's a skill, but it's a skill that can be learned. And the way to learn how to do it is just to do it over and over and over again. Like to your point, I start sentences with and or but or whatever, because that's just how I talk, and that's how the sentence would transition, even though
Mm-hmm.
that's not proper grammar. It's just the way that it transitions. So outside of format though, I think like one way to stand out is to, like, one of our, like, we have this hack where we take comments from
Mm-hmm.
comments that we make on other people's posts, and we turn those into our own posts. I'm at the point now where that's my intention. Like at first it was kind of accidental. You turned me onto it. And now it's like, it's an intention. Like I look at like, how can I keep creating content by commenting on other people's posts?
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point now where it's close to a copy and paste on some, because that's where I'm working out material to see what resonates. And if it resonates with enough people, and you can determine whatever enough people are, you know that it's going to resonate on a larger scale. And that's where it should become its own posts. And also when somebody drops a bomb on like one of my posts, I regularly reply to them and say, turn this into your own post, to like get people thinking that way. It's like, this is you working out material. I'm telling you, it's good. Take it and run with it, because you're onto something here. And I think if like you really want to create content that stands out or is opinionated or is different, start in the comments and create this like content library and just like keep publishing those as your own.
I agree with that, obviously, because it's what we do all the time. But
Yeah, we do.
I think that on the flip side of where people struggle and where the question was asked is like everyone's trying to do this. I think the reason why some people fall flat is when they don't do that method. And I consider that method to be either the two ways that work are when someone asks you a question, whatever your answer is, you provided that person value. I'm talking in the real world or anywhere else, right? So someone comes to you and asks you a question about employer brand, whatever your answer is, that's quality content for other people. Like if it helps one person, it's going to help somebody else too, most likely. Yeah. Or in this case, you're having a discussion, and as part of the midpoint of that discussion, it made you come up with a new idea. I think so. That's kind of a continuation of something that someone else had valuable, especially if they've, you've gone back and forth with them. Most people, when they think about trying to create content, they sit there in front of the computer and they try to just try to guess what someone's going to find value in. And that's really hard to do consistently, just unprodded. Like they take it from a standpoint, okay, what's going to help me? What's going to make me look like an expert that someone else is going to like? Yeah. And I think you're going to fail most of the time if you try to do that, like there might be a couple stump points that you have that, are going to work, but it's really, you're going to run out of material and ideas really quick. And I've maintained that people, like, you have so many ideas in your head that people find value in. It's how do you pull them out? And the two hacks that we have are answering people's questions. And like, as you're having a discussion, like just kind of save the other things you've said. Yeah. But trying to do that kind of unprompted, flat-footed, not having just, staring at the page, like you're going to get writer's block. You're going to make a lot of posts that people are probably not going to be interested in because nothing prodded you to, you know what I mean? It was all just you can't, what from your perspective, if you try to guess what someone else is going to find value from their perspective, it's not going to work. And you and I know that because how many times that we've just had posts that we liked that just didn't work. You know what I mean? Like that's part of the whole process of kind of creating content is finding out what doesn't work. And, you know, not just the ideas, but the technique, which is, I guess, kind of what we're in. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to refrain from getting into my process because I have a very strict process. It's all right.
So, all right, what do I want to talk about now? There was a lot of other things we kind of had in the docket here. I don't know how much I want to get into this, but I guess on the grand scheme of content with.
Oh, wait?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to add one more thing to the employee generated side.
Sure.
We're talking a lot about LinkedIn because that's what you and I do. I don't want anyone to think that creating your own content has to be social media. Social media is the most glamorized, but I think that there's a lot of smart, creative people who just don't have, I don't know, maybe like the inclination to want to be public on social, or maybe it's just a different skill set, writing or creating video for social. And like, maybe they want to start a Medium publication, or they want to start a tech blog if they're an engineer, or they're like a really savvy salesperson who wants to start like a cool like engineering, or excuse me, a cool like sales blog or something. There's just like, content doesn't mean social. Content means content. Everything is just a channel for it. And so I think like you should just go where whatever is like calling you and like where you feel the most creative.
It's the perfect transition to the next one of the other things I want to talk about. I think that LinkedIn, it's not overused or overrated, but I think the return is going to continue to be diminishing, and that people need to invest in creating their own channels. I think that every LinkedIn guru has been saying, like, take my master class. This is what you need to do to be successful. This is the greatest thing ever. You need to go on in LinkedIn. And 2019, that was the case. 2020, it's still the case. And 2021 may still be the case. But I think that, I mean, everyone I talk to who like, there's starting to be a diminishing return, I think, on some level. And part of that's because people are a lot of times saying the same things. Part of it's because more people are getting involved, more people are posting. Like 2018, 2019, if you were an active person who was active on LinkedIn, there were so few people who were, right? So you were getting a million eyeballs. But as everyone starts doing it, and there's a lot of things that I think LinkedIn's really dropped the ball on. So first off, what we're doing right now, right? I'm doing a Zoom webinar, and I'm also on LinkedIn Live. I have to put this on 2 channels because some people like the idea that your entire audience is going to just like LinkedIn Live is going to pop up their phone and they're going to instantly pick up their phone but it's not realistic, right? If someone really wanted to see you and I like talk today, they want to put it in their calendar. But you can't, like, they have their calendar function on LinkedIn, but it doesn't actually go to your calendar. Like, people want an actual preset link they can put in their calendar, save it, click it, know that it's going to be there. LinkedIn doesn't have this for some reason. So like, I'm on 2 platforms right now, which makes no sense. Like, LinkedIn could dominate the webinar space if they wanted to, right? Like, why wouldn't they? Like, they have they're the world's largest network of like business stuff in general, but they just kind of opted out and wanted this kind of half-assed version of Instagram Live or whatever. So that's one thing. That's why you can't count solely on LinkedIn to kind of be your channel for everything. The lack of notification features for people you want to follow also drives me crazy. So you and I have 20, 30, 40 people that like, I want to see what they post every day, except it's not always going to show up on your feed. Now, like a lot of other social media platforms, like you can actually like subscribe to somebody, make sure you see all of their posts. But you can't do that on LinkedIn. So if you want to do that, if I want to see everything that you, or we keep mentioning like Dave Gerhardt or anyone else, like you have to manually you have to save a collection of links and manually go to their page every day if you actually care about what they want to say, which makes no sense. Like, you want to talk about a way to keep your users engaged, let them subscribe to see all the stuff they want to see. You know what I mean? It's just the most idiotic thing ever. I think the engagement pod thing is still like, I didn't realize how bad it was, but when you think about it, and actually the thing I sent you today on your post, like as of today, the first time I noticed it, I think one of the problems is engagement pods enable accounts to prop themselves up with mediocre content through a series of just, they're going to have other people in their engagement pod and, just automatically make comments. And it's like thanks for posting, like crappy comments like that. I really thought LinkedIn would shut this down at some point, but instead they went the opposite direction. And,
Yeah.
and today I noticed if I click comment, click the comment button, it actually gives me some auto responses I can just pre-populate in there. This is on the web version, not even the mobile version. It's like a text message, you know what I mean? Where it says okay, be there in 5 minutes or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know why they would do that. It's beyond me. So, but my point is what I really liked was, these are some of the reasons where I think that they're missing the mark. And I still love the platform and I want it to get better. And I'm not saying this as a LinkedIn sucks kind of thing, but I think that people need to recognize that this period where it's amazing, organic, free way to get content published and post and get recognized is not going to last forever.
Yeah.
It just can't.
Yep.
More people are going to do it. Like the way that if it's really successful for a lot of people, other people are going to just start doing the same thing. You have to really be thinking about how you can build out your own channels, other things outside of LinkedIn. So what I really like, what you've done, prime example is your email channel, right? So you started how many months ago, your own newsletter where you get, you basically send people your thoughts 3 or 4 times a week, however many days a week it is.
Yeah. So I started that, I don't know, 3 months ago, maybe. I'm so bad with time, but not that long ago. So this is making me think of a couple things. So that was prompted by me just developing, I was developing too much attachment to the platform, really. Mm-hmm. Like I'm bad about that. And so I was just so attached to it and I kind of lost perspective and I was like, okay, maybe I'll just give this all up together, all together and like forget this whole thing. And I went through that for like a day and then I came back and I was like, that's stupid. So let's figure something else out.
I remember you messaging me that day. You thought you were done. I'm like, really?
I was going to be done. Yeah. Me just being emotional. So then I was like, oh, well, I still I've talked about multiple times today. I really enjoy the writing process. Like I really, really do. I love it. And it makes me think and it keeps me sharp and it makes me like test and question my own thinking, and I want to keep doing that. And then I got inspired by Seth Godin's blog. He I called it a micro blog. I've been corrected on terminology, but who cares? It's just like really short posts on a daily basis. He's been doing it for years and I absolutely love it. It takes me less than a minute to read. No time out of my day. No hindrance. I look forward to it. And I was like, I want to create that. So I'm just going to create a subscription model to the exact same content I post on LinkedIn. I'm just going to do it in a different channel. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Bounced it off a couple people. Everyone loved the idea. And to me, another thing I've realized is that the feed is not my friend. The feed is not designed to provide me with value. The feed is designed to keep me sucked in. And most of the feed is just a bunch of crap. Like it's stuff that like isn't bringing me any value. Like it's not like it's doing nothing for me. It's just wasting my time. And so what I started to do was like think, okay, if I can make this really convenient for people, that's it. Instead of if they like my stuff and they don't want it to get lost in this busy, chaotic feed, they can subscribe. They'll get it in their inbox. And if they want to read 3 posts from me on Friday or on Sunday, having their coffee, they can do that. It's at their leisure. It is a convenience play only. It's not about selling anything. It's not about that anything. It's about moving this micro audience of people who like actually care about my stuff somewhere else to make it convenient for them. And it was really well received. I had no idea what was going to happen, and it continues to grow. And so I still post on LinkedIn, but everything goes to the newsletter as well. And now like, you did this for me. Now I'm starting to do like guest posts on Fridays, and it's become like really this like fun thing, and the community's building. And so, but back to like the feed is not your friend thing. you taught me this thing, and like I don't scroll my feed anymore. I engage heavily with my stuff, and I engage with a handful of people who have built up enough trust and credibility and value over time that like I just know that if they post that, it's going to be something worthwhile for me.
I give it maybe one thumb swipe and that's it. You know,
Yeah.
like that's the thing is like I and it's bad because you know there would have to be it would take so much time for me to do a lot of unfollowing for it to make it more worthwhile. I think, but your point though too about community versus audience, I think this is another kind of key concept that is gonna, because I think bringing things back to like the employer level is that I think the point of anything, because we kind of went from like employer content to kind of personal brand content and stuff like that, but kind of bringing it back full circle, the point of all of this is to make you more accessible to your customers or your potential customers or your stakeholders, right? It's to whether it's job seekers, whether it's companies that might want to buy from you, but and I think that's the difference between community building versus audience building, is that if you're doing this from the intention where you just want people to hear you talk, you know, because I think when people say audience building, I'm not just talking about product, but we're talking about back to Vanity Metrics, where you're just posting easily agreeable stuff. It doesn't get you to a point where people want to ask you anything. It doesn't get you to a point where people actually seek out your opinion or advice. Moreover, like it also doesn't get you to a point where you can engage with them in a comment section. You know what I mean? If like, what is there to say? Like, if someone just talking about how, you know, they had a bad day once and they're going to get through it. And so can you, like, what's there to really discuss there? You know what I mean? But I think that if you're able to talk about more granular concepts or things that people may not be familiar with, and actually kind of have more of an engaged discourse with them, that gets you at a point where people will want to look forward to. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not about getting your name out there online. It's about getting one-on-one conversations with people in person. That's why the stuff that I do, because it makes it easier for me to talk with people one-on-one. And I think that if your content strategy, whether it's LinkedIn or whether you're doing things in a podcast format or other forms of social media, if you're in a B2B mindset, the end goal has to be, how will this make it easier? Will this give people a reason to want to have a one-on-one conversation with me?
Yep.
And if that's not what the content you're posting is going to lend to, like, what's your point in doing all of it?
Okay. Yes. And to add to that, over time, when you show up in a way that somebody can, they trust you, or you're credible, whatever, like, you get access. And I think that access is the currency, right? That's really the ROI of all of this, is access. But you have to be patient, and it takes time, because people aren't going to just trust you one time. You have to show up 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 times before they're like, oh, this person like really gets their stuff, or I resonate with it, whether they do or not. And that's worth my time. And so if you put in the time to build that up, then you can gain access to people that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. Like, nobody's just going to freely give you your time, but this also makes me think about like market obsession. Like, I'm obsessed with the market that I serve. Like, I really am. Like, I spend a lot of time talking to them. Like, and I think it's important. I think it's really important for, if you're going to follow somebody, to know that they eat their own dog food, and that I'm heavy on market research. I talk about it a lot. I scream it from the rooftops, and it's something like I routinely have 3 to 5 conversations with people in my market every single week, so I can keep a finger on the pulse of what the hell is going on. And that's where all of my stuff comes from. And I think that's really important because that makes it relevant. It's relatable. It's real. And so it's just, I think like there's this combination of like access and market obsession that if people can like get on those tracks, yeah, you can run with it. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. I'll put it this way. I think that right now, so let's talk about sales just for a quick second.
Mm-hmm.
So with COVID, a couple things have happened. One, barely anybody needs to buy anything, right? Compared to the normal, like there's less buyers of anything, you know. Two, people actually have more time to talk though. I've had such an easier time actually connecting with people live now than before.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to go the non-scalable route. You have to recognize the fact, like the amount of, I've seen a substantial uptick in like automated messages coming my way.
Oh man, me too.
You know, like nonstop. And it's definitely spiked. And I think that a lot of people, like the way they're going to sell their way out of this situation is they're just going to keep blasting more messages and contacting more people.
And they're like this long.
Yeah. But you need to understand that you can't make a buyer out of a non-buyer, you know? And if you take the time to write like a thoughtful email message to somebody, you have a far better chance right now than you did 6 months ago. And that person actually just saying, hey, let's do a Zoom call, you know, and setting yourself up for when things finally turn around at some point in the future and actually build a relationship now for some point in the future. Because, you know, like I said, like I could jump on, like I love jumping on calls with people. I'd love to just hear kind of what they're about. But, you know, there's people who I can tell are thoughtful. There's honestly, most of my time right now is finding people who are either looking for jobs, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or people who are like, you know, just kind of want to hear what I have to, like, they want to know what my perspective, what's happening in the market, you know what I mean? Because I'm seeing every day in terms of the job market. But, you know, I think it's a one-to-one messages to people you may have already had a contact with, or someone like whatever your pool is people are going after. It sounds daunting to people out there, like especially salespeople who are, you know, obsessed with all these kind of automation technologies and everything else. But I guarantee you'll actually get results. You'll actually get people on the phone and on Zoom calls right now because they actually have the time.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
No, it's great. Completely agree. I think if also too, like the mindset for having these conversations, if you remove sales, if you remove a sale completely from the equation and you have the mindset, I don't care what role you're in, and your intention is to learn about the market, to understand what this person goes through, who's sitting in the seat, who's doing this work on a daily basis, to just like learn from them, you will have extremely productive conversations and you will grow yourself as a professional. Because the more empathy that you have for your buyer, just the better you are. And I think like there's sometimes I get on calls and I just ask them questions the entire time because I'm just excited to talk to them, and selfishly I learn a lot. And sometimes it's the other way around where they get on and they want to ask me a bunch of questions. But either way, it's just like this exchange of value, and there's nothing about like, hey, do you want to work with me? Like if you're going to work with me, you're going to let me know when that time is right, because you know who I am. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah. I had someone literally tell me the other week, I'm just happy to be talking to somebody who's not a coworker.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny because everyone talked about like Zoom fatigue, you know, that was like maybe last month or 2 months ago topic, but Zoom fatigue only exists internally. I don't think Zoom fatigue exists actually. If you can get like Zoom fatigue exists for people like, I got to talk to my coworkers again, I got to do another conference call, but like talk to someone new and different who comes from like a different organization that has different perspectives. Like that's like probably the most exciting thing most people are doing nowadays is like learning something new like that. So
yeah, I think if like I measured this for a while. I measured productive conversations. How many productive conversations, and I had a criteria for what productive meant, but you can establish that yourself. But it was like, how many productive conversations can I have? And that's like, for me, that was like the mindset that I just ran with, and it worked. It still does. It works really well because I know a lot of people now, and you know, like on the flip side, people have more time. There's a lot of people, like so many smart people who have been laid off or furloughed who are looking for jobs. Like I've been able to connect people with job opportunities and all kinds of like just really cool stuff because I really love having a lot of conversations.
Just love talking, which is why we're here.
I know. Not everybody does. And that's okay too. For anybody who does.
All right, so we're wrapping up on close to an hour here. So, is there anything else that you wanted to discuss? I know that there's no time limits on the podcast per se, but I'm assuming most of the viewers probably have their next hourly scheduled meeting they want to get into. So
they've opted out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. There's so much that we could talk about. I don't know. I know.
I had one. There was one fat topic, but it's a little too heavy for this point in the conversation. We'll say that for next time. So, but pleasure as always. We should do this a little more frequently. You know,
I think so. It flies, right?
I know. I can't believe it was April last time, 3 months ago. So,
yeah,
anyways.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, man. I'll read out the outro text here. Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Talents Insight podcast. If you like what you heard and want more insights from our team, visit hirewell.com/recruiting-insights, which I keep reminding myself we're going to change that to talent-insights since we rebranded. And remember to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Nate Guggia, thanks again for coming.
Thanks, buddy. Good to see you.
Stay well, everyone. See you soon.